Most of our learning should have the Beis Hamikdash immediately. For Shleima, for Yechiel Nassim ben Sarah, and Aaron David Alevi ben Menucha Lester. Okay, today we're going to start Tes Vav Amud Beis by Tanur Rabbanan. Yesterday we had a whole discussion about mainly the esrog. We made a general difference between fruits that we follow when it buds, and that would decide when it's chayiv and meiser by the budding of the fruit, like which year it belongs to, if it's a shemitah fruit or not. And then we said that the vegetables follow when you pick them. Yeah, basal lakita. We said the esrog was interesting because for most things it followed. It was considered a fruit tree, but when it came to the meiser, to the laws of meiser, we followed when you pick it. That was the opinion of the Rabbanan, Rabbi Gamliel rather. Right? That was Rabbi Gamliel's opinion. Yeah. Okay. Today we're going to have a new opinion in general about fruit trees, and then the most famous Gemara in Rosh Hashanah. Okay. So Tanur Rabbanan. Ilan shachantu peiros of kodim tesvav b'shvat. A tree that the fruits there was chanata. Chanata is the budding before Tu b'shvat. That's the Rosh Hashanah for trees. So misasher l'shana l'shavra. So the meiser is taken with the past year because the bud was before Tu b'shvat, which was the previous year. Yeah.
So why is it that we make the bracha on trees with this?
I may have an answer a little bit later in the daf. Just 1 second. Hello? Good morning. Yeah. The driving gate 5781 star.
Change it.
Pound 5781 pound. Misasher Shana Shavra. So it's the previous year. Achar Tesva B'Shvat. If it's after the 15th of Shvat, the Chanata, the budding. So Misasher L'Shana Haba. Then it's the following year. Okay, that's easy. Amar Rab Nechemia. Rab Nechemia says, "B'medvar mamur be'ilan shayis stay briches b'shana." He says that's only by an exception. Now, briches we're going to see in a minute. Actually, let's just read it through. Stay briches al kadaitach. Do you think it's really stay briches? No, 1 second. Let's. What happens is we learned this before in Beya that when a bird has its offspring, so you don't shech the first offspring. Those you leave with the mother bird, and it's only the later eggs that you would take. The first ones you leave. So a brecha was like the brood. So shtei brechas b'shana meant that it's going to give two seasons of fruit in the same year. But what Rab Nechemia seems to be saying is that if it's gonna have fruits more than one season a year, that's gonna complicate things if I'm gonna go basar lakita. Really I should go basar lakita, but in order to avoid all of that, of when it was before, after Tu B'Shvat, when you picked it, so we go basar chanata, which that seems to be more equal. Like we did it before. We did something like this before. We had certain grains that we were really going to follow basar lakita, and instead we went basar hashrasha after the roots. Remember that? Because hashrasha was all equal. Yeah. So we went basar hashrasha. Okay. That's it. There's a Gemara up there. So the Gemara asks, "Rather, stay brichas al kadaitach." Do you really think it's two broods because it's not birds? We're talking about grain. Elaim can stay brichas. It means like two broods, which means that there's several seasons. There's two seasons for the for this fruit. But if it's a tree that only has one season, you're going to call them zeisim acharuvim. For example, a date palm, olives or buxer, carob. Even though the chanata was before, in other words, according to Nehemiah, a tree, different than everyone else said, fruit trees, according to Rabbi Nehemiah, is going to be basal lakita. With the only exception to that is if there's more than one season, then you follow chanata. Okay, Taisus points out, doesn't mean really just those trees. It's in general it's all the trees, but then Taisus also says that zeisim is impossible to be in this category because we learned before that tefuah v'zeisim was when it reached the third. Okay, so sometimes remember we said cherushayt v'katan, that list just goes in all together. It's not a sometimes you throw in one of the details of a list because it's very common for that detail to be there, but didn't actually mean that. Right. Okay, so here zeisim was just thrown in because that's a common, it's common for it to go together, but it doesn't really mean that. Okay, Rabbi Yochanan, no go on becharuvim kreb Nehemiah. Rabbi Yochanan says the custom for the people by carob trees was to follow Rabbi Nehemiah. That the Meiser and the L'chaira, the Shemitah, also would follow the Lakita when the fruit is picked. That's which year it's going to belong to. Not the way everyone else said, that you follow when the fruit starts to bud. That's the year that it belongs to. Eisvi Rish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan, Rish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan's brother-in-law. Chavrusa, he asked him a question. Mishnah and Shvius, B'nai Shuach. These are white figs. Shviya Shalem Shniya. These figs take a long time to grow. We have fruits like this that they take more than a year to grow. If that's the case, they take more than a year to grow. So if they started growing in the Shemitah year, when do the laws of Shemitah apply? Not that year. So it says the Shviya Shalem Shniya. Their Shemitah is going to be a year later.
Oh wow!
Yeah, because they take a long time. There are fruits like this that if Esther could stay on the tree the whole year, we said, yeah, that could be. But we have these fruits that 18 months. They say like monastera, the monastera. Yeah, it sits over there on the tree. So.
I would figure it's when it's ripe on a Shemitah year is when it's ripe.
Yes, and so that's Rish Lakish's question. Mm-hmm. Because according to Rabbi Nehemiah, it should be when it's ripe. And it's obvious from here that if it's going to be a year later, that we're not following when it's ripe and when it's picked, like Rabbi Nehemiah says, we're following when it's budded. Because we're looking at it, it's considered Shemitah a year or two later. So because it only grows in the third year. So Shniya would be the second year of the Shemitah cycle. It takes 3 years to grow. Ishtik. Rabbi Yochanan is quiet. See what that means. We have to wait for the end of the Gemara. Amali Rabba Abba Kayan, Rabbi Yossi Kayan. We have these Abba Kayan, Rabbi Yossi Kayan. Usually we don't have it written like that. Amay Yishtik. Why was Rabbi Yochanan quiet? I have a good teretz. Leimalei Amina Lachana Rab Nechemia Vatamatli Rabbanan. It's a machlokes. I mean, it's a machlokes. So I'm telling you one opinion, and you're asking me a question from the other opinion. So he responded to that. This is Rabba telling to Rabbi Yossi, because the response to that would be obvious. They said, why are you following Reb Nechemia? You have all the sages that say differently. Why doesn't he say Kamina lach nagu v'atamatli yisura? I didn't say that that's the halacha. I said that's what people are doing. So he had a simple teretz. Why was he quiet? It says Darmalei b'makam yisur ki nagu shavkinan lei. If it's the place, if it's taka forbidden, if that's the halacha, you're gonna let them do that? They should have stopped them. We're asking why is Rabbi Yechina quiet? He had a good answer. Could have said that the people were only doing this regarding Meiser. Now, Meiser, taking a tenth of the grain and giving it to the Kaya and giving it to the Levi, is biblical only if it's grain, wine, and oil. Here we're talking about carob, so that's a rabbinic extension to the original law of Meiser. So why would they follow Reb Nechemia and say that it follows when it buds, and say it follows when it picks? That's regarding Meiser. You're asking me a question about Shemitah. Shemitah is biblical. So by Shemitah they don't follow, by the rabbinic laws they follow Reb Nechemia. That's a good teretz. Elamar Baba Kayan says, Tamani, Mishiva Reish Lakish L'Tshuvazu. This is a very interesting Gemara. It says, I wonder if Reish Lakish answered this question. Mishiva, if he answered, Ha'isva, he's the one that asked the question. Ela Ema im Kibla Rabbi Yechanan im Lekibla. Question is if Rabbi Yechanan accepted this answer or not. Or maybe it means if he accepted the question. But what the Gemara is asking here is, did Rabbi Yechanan say, when Rabbi Yechanan's being quiet, does it mean that he didn't think that it was necessary to respond because I have such a simple answer that there's a difference between biblical and rabbinic? Or was he actually quiet because he didn't have an answer? Taisvus has a great question. When the Gemara said, Shavkes Rabbanan v'avdes Reb Nechemia, that we could have asked, if you would try to answer that it's a machlekes. And the reason why what Rabbi Yechanan should have answered is that you're asking me from the Rabbanan. I'm saying like Reb Nechemia, you can't, that's not a question. I'm following a different opinion. The response to that was going to be that why are you following Reb Nechemia? So Tosfos says what the Gemara really could have said was that Rabbi Yochanan has a statement in Shas that halacha kistam mishnah. Whenever it says halacha kistam mishnah, that's Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan himself holds that we follow an anonymous mishnah, and the anonymous mishnah says that we don't go like Reb Nechemia. So that would have been the real question. Okay. Okay. Now we start the famous Gemara. Rabbi Nechemia is a student of Rabbi Akiva. He's going to be on the chart, probably like on the side of Reb Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Elazar ben Shmuel, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. Rabbi Nechemia should be somewhere over there, unless he didn't make it. He argues in the Medrash. Rabbi Nechemia always argues with Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Nechemia and Rabbi Yehuda, they argue all through the Medrash. It's very interesting. It's not there? It's not on the chart at all? He's maybe printed smaller. He should be there. He's not common in the Mishnayos. But in the Medrash is there. I'll give you an example. Yeah. I'll give you an example. You know, if the Shvatim, if they married their sisters, or if they married other women from the Canaanite, that's a machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemia. And similar throughout the Medrash is all Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Nechemia. They're arguing about everything. Stam Tesefta. In other words, if there's a Tesefta without a name, that's Rabbi Nechemia. Remember, Stam Mishnah is Reb Meir. Stam Sifra, very nice. Stam Sifra is Rabbi Yehuda. Stam Sifri is Rashbi, or if you want Shimi, if you want to call it Rashbi by a nickname. But that's how you can remember it. And Stam Tesefta is Rabbi Nehemiah. Yeah. Okay, you ready? This is it. This is the center of Masechtas Rosh Hashanah. Baba Prakim, the new Mishnah on the top of the sign. Baba Prakim Eilam Nidin. The world is judged in 4 times throughout the year. The Pesach Alatvua. On Pesach, it's judged for grain. Ba'atzeres on Shavuos Al Peres Ilan for the fruit trees. We'll see why. Everything is going to be explained in the Gemara. But Rosh Hashanah, what's Rosh Hashanah? That's the first of Tishrei. Kol ba'yolam avrim lefanav kivnei marim. Everyone passes by Hashem like Bnei Marin. The Gemara is going to explain what Bnei Marin is. It's one of these things in davening that no one knows what it means unless you learn the Gemara. They joke that someone came to get a smicha test. So he shows up, he knows the whole Yeridaya, everything. So the rabbi says, what is Yoire and Malkish? 2 words in Shema. You know, the davening. It's hard words, but it's the rain. Anyway, you didn't know. It's just not yet. Can't give you smicha. Anyway, Tifnei Marim, we'll see in the Gemara. He forms their hearts together. He understands all their actions. That's referring to Rosh Hashanah. And on Sukkot, they're judged on water. We'll see in the Gemara everything. Hey Tvua, which grain, when you mentioned that on Pesach, we're judged for grain, which grain? Ilema, Hatvua, the Kaima, if we're talking about the grain that's attached to the ground. In other words, you see, some of the grain is harvested already by Pesach. And when do they plant? They plant now. The grain is planted now. At least the wheat is planted in Cheshvan. The barley is planted a little later in Shvat. It grows faster, but it comes out around Pesach time. That's when the grain is ripens. So you say it's judged. Which grain are you referring to? You're referring to the grain that's still attached to the ground. So that gets judged. Kol hani harftaki. The avdu Allah, emas itidun. So all the happenings, harftaki, I guess means events or happening, that passed by it, when was that decided? Right? It's already older. Ella tvua de mizdara. We're talking about the future grain that's going to be planted in Cheshvan 7 months later. That's being judged already it's already decided, yeah? It's decided like the neshamas of those grains already being judged in Pesach. L'meimra d'chadina mitada, you want to tell me that there's one judgment that happens on Pesach and it follows through for the whole life of the grain? But Tanya Tvushir, but carry Pesach. Carry over here doesn't mean like tumas carry. Carry means like a bad occurrence. What's the example? Rashi says hail, some sort of dry winds or something. If there's some occurrence to the grain that happened before Pesach, nidainus l'sha'avar. When was that decided in heaven? That was decided the year before, Pesach before. La'achara Pesach. If it happened after Pesach, knows the grain is still attached to the ground, it doesn't go all get harvested, then nidainus lahaba. Then what was that?
Because it was decided up there, the Mason were talking about the
From Brachas.
Yeah.
From Brachas.
Yeah, what page in Brachas? Yeah, very good.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
but the idea of being judged, like on Rosh Hashanah, we're judged based on our past actions.
Yeah.
The decree is for the future, but the judgment is on what already happened.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Spell out the question. Spell out the question. What are you saying?
Saying that the fact that the wheat already had its happenings, thing happened to it, it can be judged. Okay, so this is what happened to the wheat so far, and now it's going to become grain or something. But just as we are judged on what already happened to us, and based on what already happened, now we're going to receive our reward or punishment. I mean, you could interpret it the same way. It doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a question to me that you're going to judge something if nothing
That didn't do anything.
Yeah, didn't do anything.
Is the judgment of the grain maybe based on human actions?
Right, on how we treated the grain so far in its lifetime.
So the grain gets judged, how we were last year. That's a little confusing. You think like, oh, today, how's things going to go? No, we're turning out that the grain is coming in from from a year or two ago. It's coming in like old stuff. Yeah, that's what it seems. Yeah, I don't know. But tell me.
Why it's called carry?
Yeah, a happening, or it's kushi. Tell him to carry it means with hardness. Interesting. Shikaya. Yeah, the word. That's a good one. Oh, that's what you want to say?
Actions of what?
No. Oh, you're pulling that out from Taisus? I didn't read Taisus like that. I thought Taisus was saying just how to translate. It's such a strange brisa to tell me that carry happens to. He's saying no. It's the word means something else. Okay. Yeah. So Adam Shir Bakaria in Yom Kippurim. If a person has an occurrence, something happens to him before Yom Kippur. So Nidin L'Shavar, that was a judgment from the previous year. Here it's saying Yom Kippur is the day of judgment. Lacha Yom Kippurim Nidin Laba, and after Yom Kippurim it's the future. So our question is from the grain that it seems like there wasn't just one judgment for the whole life of the grain. It seemed like there was a judgment from the past. There's another judgment that shows up in the middle that judges this grain. There's actually two judgments. There's like the birth of the grain, and then there's the end of the life of the grain, which happens on the next Pesach. Amar Abaye, it gets more complex. This is like very simple. Amar Abaye says zara afla. If someone sees the slow growing grain, that's referring to the wheat. Likadem, the matzlach, that it's doing well. So likadem v'lizra charpi, you should right away plant early the barley. It should finish growing before Pesach because this year is going good. Mazel is going well. So plant early. So you get it all in the mazel. Yeah, I heard Rabbi Berlwein had this joke about he said there was a wealthy man that everyone used to go ask him for advice. So, but then he lost his money. So people stopped asking him for advice. He says, I know I lost my money, but my chachma I still have. So turns out that there is mazel, that everything goes together. With the wealth comes the chachma. I see it says in Sfarim like this, that when mazel shines, it shines in all areas. Mm-hmm. So he's having a good year. It's a good year. You should plant the barley also. Yeah. Where is it? Yeah. I have to remember that. That's right.
After though, it's gonna say, "What are you trying to trick Hashem?"
Yeah.
Isn't there a psychological significance to when it's planted?
Oh yeah, but that has to grow a third.
Mm-hmm.
Has to grow a third. You're talking about the chadash.
For example,
I think.
yeah,
Yeah, I think if it grows a third.
To get it planted before.
Right. Has to have.
The day after Pesach.
No, yeah.
You can't eat it till
Right.
next.
I think it's grown a third before Pesach, before the Aimer. I think that's counted. Like we said by mice. I think that's how it works. If I remember correctly. Chadash. Yeah, and I think so. I think so.
The point is, if
I have to check that out.
the point is, if you don't plant barley until after the Yom Kippur,
Then you have to wait a whole year, right? But he's not talking about. He's talking about planting it in Tevis or Shvat to get it in. Barley grows faster than the wheat to get it in. The Adamatul Medaini Kadam Selek, that by the time the new judgment's going to come, it's already have come out and grown. Okay, now the Gemara says Mani Masnisin. Who's the author of our Mishnah? Lei Rab Meir, Lei Rab Yehuda, Lei Rab Yosef, Lei Rab Nasan. Wow, we just get rid of the whole, all the Tanoim, the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. They're not going to fit with our Mishnah. Not Rab Meir, not Rab Yehuda, Rab Yosef, and Rab Nasan. Rab Nasan, I don't know if he was a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva. Nasan's a friend of Rab Meir. Remember, Rab Nasan and Rab Meir, one was the Chacham, Rab Meir is the Chacham, and Rab Nasan is the Av Bezdin. It's called Rab Nasan Abavli.
So this Mishnah is from Tehillim?
No, the Mishnah quotes a pasuk.
Quote,
The
yeah.
quote is a pasuk in Tehillim. Hayetzi Yachad Libam.
Okay.
Yeah. The Mishnayos is based on the tradition from the Anshe Knesset Agdala,
Mm.
and it gets edited and written down by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, probably. Yeah. The Tanya, where's Reb Nassan on the chart?
all the way to the
But he's on the same row as Reb Meir.
I'm listening above.
The Tanya, here's the brisa that has everyone. The Tanya, Kol Nidonim b'Rosh Hashanah. Everything is judged on Rosh Hashanah. Gzardin Shalem Nechtam b'Yom Kippurim. Kedivri Reb Meir. That's the way Reb Meir says it. So forget about all the 4 seasons of judgment. It's all Rosh Hashanah. Everyone's judged, and then the seal is Yom Kippur. That's Reb Meir's opinion. So that clearly is not our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Kol Nidonim b'Rosh Hashanah. Everyone is judged on Rosh Hashanah. Gzardin Shalem Nechtam Kol Echad V'Echad B'Zmanai. In the Gzardin, each one is according to its time. So let's take a look. The Pesach Halatfua, the verdict of Pesach is on the grain. The grain's verdict is on Pesach. Batzeres al Peres Ilan. The fruit trees, the verdict is going to be on Shavuos. B'Chagni Dinim Alamayim, and on Sukkot, the verdict is going to be, the verdict for water is going to be Adam is judged, man is judged on Rosh Hashanah, and the verdict is going to be on Yom Kippur. Now, that's the closest we're going to get to our Mishnah, but we're going to see that there's a problem with this. It still can't be our Mishnah. Why not? Because our Mishnah says that we're judged on Rosh Hashanah. Let's say our Mishnah is just talking about the verdicts. Let's say, and that would fit with Rabbi Yehuda. Pesach is the verdict for the grain. Shavuos is the verdict for the tree. So what are we dealing with Adam? Adam is the verdict, or Adam is the judgment? So it's all the verdict. Rosh Hashanah is the verdict. That's not what Rabbi Yehuda says. Rabbi Yehuda says the verdict is in Kippur. So it's not going to fit. Rabbi Yaisi. Rabbi Yaisi says a person's judged every day. He's remembered or judged in the morning. Rab Nassan says a person's judged every hour. To the moments he's examined. Okay, so that's our question, is it doesn't fit with the Mishnah. Maybe you want to say that our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, which fit pretty well because we have 4 times that the verdict is. We'll have to say that our Mishnah is talking about the verdict. Then we're left with a problem, because our Mishnah says that if we're dealing with the verdict that says Rosh Hashanah, Rabbi Yehuda says it's Yom Kippur.
Is this from the perspective that no matter what the judgments are for the land and the pharaohs, everything through, in one capacity or another, it's still for the humans, because all of these elements within the world are created for the humans, and whether they do well or not, it really affects what happens to the ultimate judgment. It kind of ties back together
with Rosh Hashanah anyway.
with Rosh Hashanah anyway.
Yeah, that's a good explanation for Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda's perspective that, what's your first name?
Joseph.
Joseph. Joseph is saying that that everything is relevant for human. I mean, the fact that a grain gets judged is not relevant for the grain. It's relevant for us. So that would explain Rabbi Yehuda's view that everything is judged on Rosh Hashanah. Only question is, when's the verdict? Everything has its season for that, but it's all associated with the human. That would fit nicely. Amar Rava says, so we're looking for a source, an authorship of our Mishnah, because our Mishnah doesn't fit with the other four. Hi Tana Debei Rabbi Shmali. Our Mishnah is actually Rabbi Shmal. Tana Debei Rabbi Shmal. It was a brisa that was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmal. The Tana Debei Rabbi Shmal, there was a brisa that was taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmal. Barba Prachim Olam Nidan. The world is judged in 4 seasons. The Pesach al Atvua. The grain is Pesach. Batzeres al Pesach Ilan. Shavuos is the fruit trees. B'chag Nidanim al Amayim. On Sukkot, it's the water. Vadim Nidim Rosh Hashanah. And man is judged on Rosh Hashanah. And the judgment, the verdict is going to be on Yom Kippur. And our Mishnah is not the verdict. Our Mishnah is the judgment, the beginning of the judgment. We'll see in a moment. You're asking the relevance of this.
I'm saying if the judgment were call it is Rosh Hashanah, so what happens between Rosh Hashanah and Pesach, and we're waiting on the judgment for the results for?
Yeah. Let's wait a little bit because the Gemara actually asks some interesting things. Amar Rav Chizda, my time with the Rabbi Yosi. Rav Chizda says, what's Rabbi Yosi's explanation? Rabbi Yosi says a person's judged every day. He says, what do you mean? Kedakamer taima. It says, he has a pasuk that the people are judged, are remembered in the morning. He says, no, the question was different. My time of Yamakar Reb Nosson. Why doesn't he say like Reb Nosson that a person's judged every hour? Which is the pasuk of Ativchanenu, L'Regam Tivchanenu. Oh, really? That's the same pasuk. Oh, very nice. So it says, Bechina, he answers like this. Bechina yuni bi'almehi. No. When it comes to examine, that's just examining. That doesn't mean a judgment. I was just looking. I wasn't judging. I'm just looking. So the Gemara says, Pekida nami yuni bi'almehi. Pekida just means to like remember or mention or visit. Visit. Pekida could be visit. It has several meanings. It's just visiting. It's just also like looking into. It doesn't mean a judgment. Elam Rav Chizda, time of the Rabbi Yosi Mehacha. Rav Chizda says we have another source. Lasis mishpat avdei mishdam Yisrael dvar yem b'yemi, to do the judgment. This is Shlomo's tefillah. Yeah, the longest prayer in Tanakh. Shlomo Melech's prayer. The shortest prayer is Moshe Rabbeinu's prayer for Miriam, Kelna Rafanala. The longest prayer is Shlomo Melech's prayer in Malachim Perek Ches. It's I don't know, 48 psukim or something. Anyway, yeah, the Malbim says that that's the source of our Shemona Esrei. If you look through, it's very interesting. And there's even a source in there for Balam al-Shinim, which was added later. Yeah, that's how he puts it. Yeah. Malbim is very creative. But he says, to do the judgment of his servants and the judgment of the Jewish people every single day. You see, person's judged every day. The source would be from Malachim. Rav Chizda, and Rav Chizda also said Melech v'tzibar. We had this Gemara earlier in Rosh Hashanah. If there's a king and there's a congregation that are being judged, Melech nichnas tchil l'din. The king comes in first. Shnem alasis mishpat avdei u'mishpat Yisrael. First the servant and then the nation. My time. What's the reason why it's like that? It's not respectful. The king should wait outside for everyone else to finish. Right now, that he should go in before the judge gets angry with everyone else, and then he comes in, he's already in a bad mood, right? So that shouldn't happen to the king. We mentioned that there were studies done about cases that are finished before lunch or after lunch. What's better?
Also, by the way, Fridays.
Fridays is a bad day?
But Friday, you can be sure that the judge wants to.
But when do you get like a more lenient ruling? Early morning or
We get it later on the day.
later in the day?
You don't want to be the first
I,
guy.
I thought it was after lunch.
Yeah, you don't want
After
to be
lunch.
the first guy on the docket. You want to be like the last guy on the docket.
The last guy on the docket. Okay.
No, I thought it was just after lunch.
From the
Whatever.
Gemara over here, it's saying the first guy because he gets angry as the day goes on. But that's a different sort of judge. It's like, what were you thinking? What are you doing? It's a bunch of. That's it. I've had enough.
So what's the difference between a servant and Am Yisrael?
Yeah. So the servant here is being referred to the king. Would be the single servant. That's what I guess Shlomo Melech is referring to himself.
Mhm.
So
So they're judged
first.
every hour. Oh, first, okay.
Yeah. Amar Rabbi Yosef. No, this is not Rabbi Yossi. This is Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef is the friend of Rabbah, the teacher of Abaya. He says like this, based on everything that we learned, here goes the big question of Rav Nosson. You ready? It says, Kaman matzlina ne'idna. So according to which opinion do we daven every day? Aktsiri vamri, for the sick and for the weak. Why are we davening? It's already over. Yeah. It says, come on, Rabbi Yossi. It must be like Rabbi Yossi that says a person's judged every single day. According to the Rabbanan, it's all over. So our whole religion, going to shul and all of this is all Rabbi Yossi. Taisvis asks the obvious question. According to the Rabbanan, we're not going to daven. We don't say Rafeinu, Berchus Hashanim, and Rabbi Yehuda himself, that says that a person's judged on Rosh Hashanah, Taisva says, he has a statement in Masechta Shabbos that when you go to visit the sick, you should say a tefillah. What are you praying for? It's already over. And whatever's going to happen has already been decided. So you're not going to do anything. Rabbi Tam says that you can't pray for what's it called when you take medicine before preventative. You can't pray to prevent because that's already decided. But how long they're going to be sick for, that it wasn't decided. Yeah, we do it all the time. So the preventative is only according to Rabbi Yossi. That's what he says. The preventing is only according to Rabbi Yossi, that a person's judged every day. According to the Rabbanan, you only pray to get rid of it. That's what Taisha says. Yeah. Then Taisha mentions that it could be that there's things Tfilas Rabbim that could change. Yeah. I have to tell you, can I say one story? There's a Hasidic story. Anyway, by the Chayza of Lublin, after Yom Kippur, his Talmidim would come and stand in line, and he would tell them how they made out, like in heaven, like what's going to happen. Usually you have to wait till the end of the year. But the Chayza was the seer; it would see, so he would tell them. So Reb Simcha Bunim was a Talmud of the Chayza. So he goes by, and the Chayza tells him this year. Simcha Bunim was wealthy. He would go to the fairs in Leipzig. He would buy anyway. He tells him that this year it's going to be bad, sick, and lose the money, everything. Anyway, Taka gets sick. He spends all his money on doctor bills. He can't travel to the fair. He ends up in Warsaw, and he's staying in a hotel. And he was staying at a hotel that he would always stay because he was a wealthy man. So he would just come in and pay later. They knew him. So he was staying there, and the person comes to the door and says, "Would you like duck for lunch, or would you like meat?" He realized he doesn't have any money. He's been sick. He's been spending his money on doctor bills. So he starts to cry. He cries and he cries. Anyway, a little bit later, there's a lady comes to the door and says, "Would you like to become work for me in a certain business. You work for me. Anyway, he says, oh, something must have switched in heaven. I'm starting to get some business offers. He says, no, I'm not working for you. If you either be a partner or forget about it. So, anyway, she agrees, partner. He's gonna, anyway, he makes his money back, his health, everything comes back, goes back to the chayza. He says, see? So he said, the crying I couldn't see in heaven. So that I couldn't see. You changed it. Yeah, that's the pshat in this Gemara also. So yeah, everything is decided, but it's not really decided. Okay, Viba Yisema, another pshat. Like Rabbi Yitzchak. Damar Rabbi Yitzchak, Yafet Tzak Ladam Ben Kaidem Gazardin Ben Lach Gazardin. Yeah, Rabbi Yitzchak knows the story. When you cry, it works before the Gazardin, after the Gazardin, everything. Yeah, you can change it. Tanyam Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Akiva. It was taught in a brayso. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of his teacher, Rabbi Akiva. Usually, you don't have a student in the name of the teacher saying it Mishum in the name of. Usually, you heard it directly. Mishum means in the name of it. It wasn't direct. But anyway, here we have the explanation for the Mishnah. Why does the Torah say bring the Omer on Pesach? Because the Pesach is the time of the grain. Omer is the barley offering. So that the grain should be blessed in the field. Why do you bring the 2 loaves of bread on Shavuos? Because Shavuos is the time of the fruit trees. Rashi over here, amazing Rashi. He says, I heard that Rabbi Yehuda follows what it says in Sanhedrin, that the tree that Adam Rishon ate from was wheat. So therefore, on Shavuos, we bring the wheat because that's the tree. And that's why the trees are judged on Shavuos. The fruits of the tree, the wheat would include all of those fruits. That's Rabbi Yehuda according to his Shita. Amrak. Was wheat. Yeah. So that's why we're answering according to what Rashi says, that Rabbi Yehuda has a statement in Sanhedrin that the Eitz Hadas was wheat. Yeah.
But we don't say boy parades if we wheat.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between if we would say Bayre, oh, you're right, Bayre Priya 8. Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay.
So why don't you say
That the judgment is on, yeah, I hear. Adam is actually neither Rosh Hashanah, but the tree itself is judged on Shavuos. Yeah. I hear the question. Yeah, we think it's the apple. That's what we've been influenced, right? What do they
Grape,
joke about?
right?
The grape. They joke about the computer, the apple. Because there's a bite in the apple. Chava, in the Apple computers. But Chava took a bite out of that. That's the original sin. Yeah, they say the Bali must say that's why the computer only has an escape button, doesn't it? And you get caught in the web. All the negatives. We don't hold that. We hold the computers only for Torah. It's not an apple. It's not. It's for kedusha. Amar Kaddish. Yeah. Okay. Here, Amar Kaddish. Mipnei Amar Torah nischu mayim b'chag. Why does the Torah say to pour water on sukkahs? Amar Kaddish Baruch Hu nischu lefanei mayim b'chag k'tei baruch lechem gish mishana, so that you should be blessed for the rain of the year. That's when it starts to rain. Was around Sukkah's time. Mention before me on Rosh Hashanah those 3 things: kingship, remembrance, and shayfris. Malchus, why do we say that? So that I should be the king over you. Zechrinus, remembrance, that I should remember you for good. Ubameh, and what do you do it with? B'shayfer. All of this is together with the shayfer. This is like literally the whole Rosh Hashanah is this one line over here. Malchus, Zechrinus, shayfris, and shayfer. All of this is shofar. Amar Abavo, lama taken b'shofar shel ayil. Why do we blow with the ram's horn? Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu. Tikul lafani b'shofar shel ayil k'dei she'eskel lechem akedas Yitzchak ben Avram u'malani alechem kilo akadatchem atzchem lafanai. You know why you should blow the shofar of the ayil? Because you should remember the akedah of Yitzchak. That, and I remember that, and then I'll consider it as if you bound yourselves before me. I'll consider it as like you just did the akedah. Why? Because over there, Avram finds the ram right afterwards to replace Yitzchak. Amar Reb Yitzchak lama taiken b'Rosh Hashanah. Why do we blow on Rosh Hashanah? The Gemara right away challenges the question. Lama taiken. Why do we blow on Rosh Hashanah? Rachman Amar Tiku. It says in the Torah to blow. Ella lama remirian. Why do you blow a trua? Right? Why do you do that? It says Mirian. Yeah, that's what you're asking. Rachman Amar Zichrin Shua. Gemara is critical about the questions. You know, what are you asking me that question? You know the answer. It says in the Torah. It says Zichron Shua. Elalama taikin u'meirian kashen yoshvin. Why do we blow kashen yoshvin? That's before Musaf. We taikin u'meirian kashen yoimdim, and then we blow again during Musaf. Why do we blow twice? My answer is kedei la'arviv as-satan, to confuse the satan. Taisvus here has an amazing question. He says, how are you allowed to just go ahead and blow twice? You're violating Bal Taisif. You're not allowed to add to the Torah. Taisvus answers, you don't add, it's not considered adding to the Torah when you do a mitzvah twice. It's adding to the Torah when you add to the mitzvah. Just to do the mitzvah twice. He says, if I picked up the lulav once today, are you allowed to pick it up again? You're not adding to the Torah, you're just repeating the mitzvah. That's the original mitzvah. If you blow the shofar again, it's not adding to the mitzvah. Possibly. There's a big discussion about if you gain anything by holding it longer. How do you increase a mitzvah if the mitzvah was performed? Like that's a discussion. Okay. Where are we holding? Rabbi Yitzchak. Yeah, we're confusing the Satan. So what's the Rebbe? The Rebbe explains confuse the Satan is that when we follow the minhagim, that confuses the Satan. That sets him. Rashi says that. V'chavim mitzvahs. Yeah. It's based on Rashi. Rashi, it's mamish mefurish in Rashi. The Rebbe's chiddush is pasha pshat. So, what does it say over here? Taisva says that the Satan gets confused because he hears the shofar being blown. He thinks it's the end of time, and he's going to be judged. So he hears the second time. It's a zoyvei. It's all over. So that's confuses him. If you don't blow at the beginning, then Marian could be like it goes bad in the end. My time with Layarva Satan, you didn't confuse the Satan. You have to confuse the Satan. Any year that it's humble at the beginning, Rosh means like poor or humble. So then it gets wealthy at the end. From the beginning of the year until the end of the year. And the word rashis is missing an aleph. Merashis ksiv. It's missing the aleph. It's rashis without the aleph. Vad achres. Seifa sheish la'achres. I don't know what the Gemara means, Seifa sheish la'achres, but I mean, just translate it. The end that has an end means that will have a good end. You only judge the person as he is right now, not how he is in the future. Shnemar, kishama lekim es kol anar basher husham. Yishmael's crying. He needs water. Hashem answers him. The angels say, why are you giving him? You know what this guy's going to do later? His children, they're going to be taken out into exile. They're going to feed, Yishmael's children are going to feed them salty foods. And then they're going to give them bags of hot air that they think is going to be water. And they're going to drink it to take away the thirst. And it goes into them and they die from the hot air. They needed a drink. So he says, no, Basher Husham. He didn't do it yet. This is where he's holding. All the Mefarshim asked the question, the Ben Sarah Moira. He gets killed when he's young, so he doesn't commit any crimes later. It's a contradiction to this. Maral. The Guraria's question in the but whether it's theoretical or not, we see that the person's judged. It's a a good shot. Maybe that's a good
So
shot.
for sure, for Rachman, isn't that it has an abundance that it's lasting beyond, that it's like it's.
Oh,
very
maybe.
successful,
Maybe achris means that it continues
but it
later.
Continues on, so it goes
Okay,
beyond,
good.
It's
Very good.
very,
Very
very
nice.
blessed.
Mishakaya.
Question.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, let's leave it over here. We're up to Vam Rabbi Yitzchak Gimel Dvarim.
the guy who is not inside.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, Rabbi Shmuel.
Hatzlacha.